Germany starts to lose control of the European Union as the Eurozone is even closer to collapsing. Today's news, we're going to have a number of issues from what's happening inside the EU, but also the situation that the Eurocrats and Michel Barnier's team are into, because they are busy negotiating a new trade deal with the UK. At the same time, their finances aren't looking too good. They've lost one of their top members, the UK, and what they're trying to beg is for the UK to request an extension. And we know why, because they need our money. Because if we stay longer, we have to pay them. So that's one issue. The second issue is that they're not ready. They truly are not ready for any WTO situation if the UK leaves without a deal. So let's start by looking at the first article, because we have in the Spectator talking about how a German court has now plunged the Eurozone into a fresh crisis. And Matthew Lynn talks about how it's a mess, and at the moment of maximum danger, no one knows anymore what the central bank can or can't do. So the whole situation is the European Union and the European Central Bank have decided to buy a lot of bonds, which is the same as quantitative easing, or in a traditional sense, printing money. And Germany, as one of their top members, have always been the puppet masters. They've always been the real masters in charge of the European decisions. The German court, the Constitutional Court, have now decided that this is not good because there's no German oversight. So when you look at this article, it talks about how the Constitutional Court in Germany is saying that there's not enough political oversight in these purchases from the German side. Now, Germany's Bundesbank carries the most weight in the European Central Bank's decisions. Later, the European Union's executive appeared to play down the ruling by stressing that the EU law takes precedence. So, on the one side, we have the European Union saying that we are superior. On the other side, you got the Constitutional Court in Germany saying, no, we should be superior because we're Germany, I guess. But the impact of this ruling is that the court decision was being closely watched by the markets. After the announcement, the euro fell to $1.0889, and the eurozone debt ratings fell at the same time. This is according to Reuters, and the market analysts are quoting and saying that this ruling raises fresh doubt about the ECB's massive bond buying program, which is also known as quantitative easing. So this is kind of interesting, because the whole situation we have is that, and the reason this ruling came about, as according to the BBC, the European Central Bank's mass bond buying was launched after the Eurozone's 2010 crisis as a support for the euro, besides the EU's national bailouts for Greece and some other countries, now includes Italy, Spain and Portugal. Now, the scheme challenged in court is called the Public Sector Purchase Program, which was launched in March back in 2015, under which the European Central Bank had bought over 2 trillion euro of bonds by November 2019. So this whole thing is getting out of control anyway, and no one's actually there to oversee this whole situation. And the Eurozone are also already in trouble because of the current situation. Now, according to the Telegraph, the Eurozone is under threat from a record economic plunge. And this is like the actual bureaucrats in Brussels are scared. So they are warning their own colleagues, because they say that the whole thing could suffer a 7.7 PC contraction this year, with Italy and Greece would be the worst affected. And the Commission are kind of worried about this situation because they can't really handle their own member states when you have certain countries going their own way during this crisis, and they're closing their borders, they are stopping trade, they're becoming protectionists, and Ursula von der Leyen is completely losing control. She's making what's his name, Juncker, the previous head of the Commission, actually look slightly more competent. And this is exactly why there is now a huge warning coming from the UK side to not extend the Brexit transition, because if we stay longer, we have no say, and we're going to have to be paying more. And but on the plus side, we've had the UK government coming out and actually saying that we're not actually going to do this. And Michael Gove himself confirmed this. Let's watch this clip.
You've referred before to the costs that would be incurred in the event of an extension and transition. You've referred to billions. Can you be more precise about what the costs involved might be?
Yes, for every continued year of EU membership, then the cost would be something between 20 billion gross and 10 billion net. But of course, one additional complicating factor is that the current multi-annual financial framework of the EU ends at the end of this calendar year. There'd be a new MFF. It would be decided by the EU 27, and we would not have a voice in that process. So we would find that even the limited say that we had in the setting of the MFF while we were an EU member would have gone. So we can't know precisely what bill we might be saddled with or might have to assent to were we to agree to another continued year of transition, or even 2 years.
And Michael Gove is absolutely right, because there's absolutely no reason for the UK to extend the transition period, because if we do that, then first, any new law, any new rules will have no say, but also we're going to have to be paying more financially. And Boris Johnson has also signalled that if there's no trade deal or future relationship agreement by the end of December, then we're also not going to be paying anything more in terms of the bill and the financial bill that we have, because we stopped being a member back in January, and if we agree to anything, then we have no say over any new regulation, and we're going to have to be paying for the European Union's projects and without benefiting from it. So it's absolutely nonsensical. There's an article in the Telegraph talking about how a longer Brexit transition is pointless, dangerous, and plays straight into Mr. Barnier's hands. And it's a good point, because it's talking about how the British negotiating request is simple. As Michael Gove told the Commons, it is an off-the-peg free trade agreement along the lines of the EU deal with Canada, Korea, or Japan. It is a skinny FTA with no tariffs or quotas, but nothing special. This could be agreed quickly if the EU wants to agree. And yes, at the same time, the European Union's future arrangements proposal is not a trade deal at all. It is an attempt to lock the UK into its legal structure under the ECJ, the European Court of Justice. And even Michel Barnier himself insisted that the UK must swallow. But okay, the thing is, I've always mentioned that the EU have been quite open and transparent with their demands up to a point. In reality, what they want to do, so they say that we want you to be politically aligned because that's how good trade works. It doesn't. But in reality, what they want is they want to find a back alley for the UK to rejoin and to be tied not just to the ECJ but to any future military cooperation and partnerships with the military union and all that idiotic stuff that they have. And if as this article says, that in other words, the European Union is still refusing to treat Britain as an independent sovereign state. Since our proposal is not so far removed from an Australian or WTO settlement that Europe cannot deny, it would be craven to accept these terms. And yeah, so it really depends what they want, because I don't think what they want is actual trade. And the mainstream media are supposed to be there to do this. They're not. They're too busy attacking the government on various issues for no reason. It's all entertainment. It's all clickbait. So we have Adam Bolton now attacking other journalists that are at least open about their biases. So he says that, I don't see why journalists like Julia Hartley-Brewer or Ian or The Spectator think that it's their job to act for the government. Yeah, so we actually have a good reply to this, because I could go on a rant about this, but we have a conservative activist, Sutian, who said, at least Julia Hartley-Brewer, Ian Dale, and The Spectator are honest about their biases. You suggest that the Tories are far right, flood your timeline with left-wing articles, then throw tantrum when we question your impartiality. Your job is to report the news, not act for the opposition. That's true. It's not just the opposition that they're doing kind of favors for. It's actually even the European Union. Why? Why should it be the job of the Sky News or Adam Bolton to support the European Commission? I don't understand this. And even when it comes to what happened recently, yesterday with Neil Ferguson, the so-called independent scientists who advised the government and pushed the government to do this lockdown, the economic shutdown of the country, they're not really questioning him, are they? And they're trying to shift the blame to the government and Matt Hancock. I don't think it was Matt Hancock's fault that Neil Ferguson's girlfriend or mistress decided to travel to visit his home. And Neil Ferguson is not really your proper expert because he's had some issues in the past and his predictions never worked. So we have an article in The Spectator talking about how there are 6 questions that Neil Ferguson should answer. And so he talks about how, first question is, in 2005, Neil Ferguson said that up to 200 million people could be killed from bird flu. He told The Guardian that around 40 million people died in the 1918 Spanish flu outbreak. There are 6 times more people on the planet now, so you could scale it up to around 200. In the end, only 282 people died worldwide. Second question is, again, in 2009, 11 years ago, he said, and his imperial team predicted that swine flu had a case fatality rate of 0.3% to 1.5%. His most likely estimate was that the mortality rate was 0.4%. Now, again, in the end, 457 people lost their lives, and the death rate was just 0.026%. Now, another thing is this guy has been quite inconsistent with everything that he's said. Back in 2001, especially, when his team produced the modeling on foot and mouth disease that suggested that animals in neighboring farms should be culled, even if there was no evidence of infection. Now, this influenced government policy and led to the total culling of more than 6 million cattle, sheep and pigs, with a cost to the UK economy estimated at £10 billion, with no evidence. So it's not really correct with his predictions in the past. And the biggest thing that he said was about the mad cow disease. And we have it here. So back in 2002, Neil Ferguson predicted that between 50 to 50,000 people would likely die from the exposure to the mad cow disease in beef. And at the same time, there were only 177 deaths from the BSE. This is the person who pushed the government to create this situation that we are in now. This guy, there's absolutely no question when it comes to social distancing. Social distancing measures work, obviously to an extent. Economic shutdown makes no sense. You have supermarkets that are still open. People are still going to those places, and those places are called shops. So why can't other shops be open and still implement social distancing measures? We know that the hotspots right now, the battleground, are in care homes and hospitals, because the majority of people have been under lockdown and have been self-isolating for weeks and weeks, and whoever had been infected have either been cured or have been sent to the hospital or whatever happened. So the majority of people in the population are already at home. So there's nothing that's been transmitted. This is according to a lot of other top scientists. The battleground, the hotspots are the care homes and hospitals. So as long as you protect those vulnerable places, other people should be able to slowly get back to their lives. And we're not saying randomly open everything. Because, I know some people in the comment section would say, "Ooh, second wave, second wave." Nobody's suggesting tomorrow everything will be like you're going to have house parties and stadiums and football matches. We talk about slowly an exit strategy to reopen the economy, because it is affecting, for a lot of people, when we talk about the economy, they think it's some sort of trivial thing. It's not. We're talking about people's livelihood, and also on a mental level, there are people who are who can't survive if we do this slightly longer. So this is the situation we have now. Now, I want to say massive thank you again for you guys to watching these videos, and I always mention to subscribe and click on that bell, the notification bell next to it. But you have to make sure that when you click on a bell, you click on all, not personalized. Otherwise, you won't really get notified when I release a new video. And we're going to have our daily vlog again at 8 p.m. We have more news for you guys on a number of issues, so make sure to tune in then. We have our daily show at 5:45 p.m. every day. I'm Maya CC. I'll see you guys at 8 o'clock with the daily vlog.